Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out to Bear Nation for tuning in for another episode of the Bear Necessities of Entrepreneurship, a podcast for the entrepreneur-minded, created by entrepreneurs, discussing the real stories that give you the tools to overcome challenges and stay true to your real self. As always, I want to give a shout out to our partners over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. We've teamed up with Fin to give back to the communities that we serve. For every episode, we will be donating $10 to the cause of choosing by our guest in the Fin platform. Enjoy today's episode. How are we doing, Bear Nation? We are back again for another episode of the Bear Necessities of Entrepreneurship podcast. And I know I say this every episode, but I'm excited about our guest. And I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I get fucking excited talking to really cool people. So I am excited for today's guest. I have the CEO and Managing Director of NUMA New York, who also happens to be a good friend of mine, Frances Simowitz. And Frances is an expert at launching startups in New York City. And as the Managing Director of NUMA New York, she has worked with tons of startup over the years. She's got over 10 years experience in this startup ecosystem. She's helped establish and grow operations in multiple cities such as Boston, Chicago, DC, and New York for startups like Sitter City, Startup Institute, now NUMA New York. She's worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs, established one of the largest and greatest entrepreneurial communities in New York City through Hacker Nest, and she also serves on the advisory board of Tech Day, which is a really cool event that goes on. And she's also kind of a badass who's spoken on global stages at places like Web Summit, just to name a few, and private group events that I was not even invited to. So that's why I'm excited to bring Frances in. Not only is she an entrepreneur herself, she works with so many entrepreneurs, and we've known each other for a while. So Frances, say hi to Bear Nation.
Hi, Bear Nation. Thank you so much for having me, Rob. I'm super excited to be here chatting with you. Obviously, I love you as a human being, and so getting to talk about my favorite topic with you, what could be better?
Exactly. And, you know, as some may know, some may not, when did I meet you and start working with NUMA? 2018? 17, 18?
I think it was around 2018.
Yeah, it has to be 18 because 17 I moved here, and 18 was when I started getting into the ecosystem, really after going through, the Venture Out program that I went through. So I've been coaching at NUMA, came in, did a workshop, came back, did a couple more workshops, started doing more workshops, started coaching more, started mentoring more. So I've been around the NUMA family for a while. We had a blast. So I got to be chosen to go to Web Summit with NUMA in a partnership program to speak while I was there. So NUMA, thank you, NUMA. But Frances and I have plenty of stories from traveling abroad and going to an amazing conference that ended up in our final night. Remember that little pub where we just started singing? I mean,
it was amazing. It was magical.
It was. Frances also loves to sing, and she's an improv. She does improv, by the way. So for those who don't know her, she has some of the most amazing skills: singer, improv, acting. So we had this group, probably 10 of us from the ecosystem. So the first night there, I was out by myself, walking the streets, was about to get some food, and I heard this voice, this beautiful, strong male voice singing some amazing music. Walked in, had an amazing meal, great wine, and knew I had to go back, so I brought everybody. They closed at 1 or 2. We stayed till 3 or 4. They let us pull the guitars off the wall. We were singing. We were dancing. We were having a great time.
Making up songs, impromptu. Such good wine. That wine that was there, that was in that cask that they made in the farm down the road was absolutely out of this world.
Yeah, it was it was in Lisbon. It was just outside of the city, some farmer, and it was literally in this wooden barrel cask thing. It was farm to table wine in the most purest form. And I mean, we drank so much of it. I can't even imagine how many bottles that would have been if we actually poured it out into bottles, because we were there all night, folks. So, I know we could talk about a million stories, but we're here to talk about entrepreneurship, which is something we both love. So let's talk about your journey. Where did your entrepreneurial journey start? Because I know that you've been working in this ecosystem for a long time. So let's start from like, how did you get involved in this entrepreneurship ecosystem, or even think about being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think so. I don't have a typical journey. I studied music education and opera in school, hence the singing, and had never really expected to find my way into entrepreneurship. It wasn't something that like I grew up wanting. In fact, I have a vivid memory, Rob, of being in the 4th grade, and it was career day, and they had a bunch of people coming in and talking about different careers. And I have a distinct visceral memory of them talking about entrepreneurship as a career path. And I remember thinking to myself, as in 4th grade, I would never want to do that. Like, that sounds like so much responsibility and terrifying. And like, I never in my dreams would I think that I would have ended up here. I mean, I wanted to be a singer. I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And after college, I kind of had fallen out of love with music because, when you are young and you're doing choir, it's very community based, right? Like you're making something beautiful with other people in a collaborative sort of way. And as you progress in a music career, really kind of where the dreams lie is in solo careers as an opera singer. And I hated it because I hated the mentality and the people. It was the idea that someone else's success means your failure. And there was a lot of ego and just like stuff that I was like, I don't like this. I don't connect to this. And so I fell out of love with like that aspect of music and spent a couple of years being lost, honestly, after college. And then I had this moment where I was nannying on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and the kids were playing on the playground. And I had this moment where I was like, wait a minute, I'm like limiting myself. I can do whatever I want. Like the world's a playground, and I'm finally big enough to play on the big kid slides, and I can reinvent myself and my dreams. So my ex-husband at the time was working for a startup. He was a software developer, and he loved his job. And he worked at a startup, and I loved like meeting them or going out for drinks with his colleagues and how passionate they were about the work, how collaborative it was, how much fun it was. And so I started to have this inkling that like I would maybe want to work in startups. And I had started to network through his contacts to see if I could get a job. But my background was I was a music teacher and a nanny. Like I was not qualified for anything related to business. I had this interview with this company called Storybird, which I really wanted to work for. It was super cool. They just took it as a favor, the call with me as a favor to their investors. And I followed up with him like tenaciously for him to have this interview with me. He interviewed me and he was like, you're so tenacious. And he was like, I really like your energy, but I don't know if you can do the job. And so I found my way to thinking about reskilling myself and finding a new path for education that might be a bit more flexible, and was looking at options for, do I go back to grad school and pay a bunch of money, which scared me because I was like, I just did that for my undergrad and, and I'm not using that degree. So what if I go back to school and I hate it? And I discovered this boot camp, or my ex-husband did. He was at like a conference and saw Startup Institute, which I then later on went to work for, and I actually have their logo tattooed to my body because I'm a crazy person. I have like all my logos tattooed to my body. Like I literally, my resume is on my left arm, like a crazy person. And he was like, maybe you'd want to do this one day. And I looked through their course materials, and the idea was actually built on the same model of acceleration as Techstars, because it was founded by the managing directors of Techstars Boston. So that was like my first foray into the world of accelerators and of entrepreneurship. And I said to my ex-husband, I was like, no, I want to do this right now. Like, let's figure out how I can quit my job so that I could go to this program, which at the time, the boot camp at that point was only $4,000. And so like it felt, and 8 weeks long. So it felt much lower risk than going to school forever. So if I hated it, I could do something else. And it was one of the most important things I've ever done in my life, which is why it's tattooed to my body.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, part of Bear Nation, we love nonlinear career paths, right? Most people on the show, myself included, thought I was going to do something else and fell into entrepreneurship. And honestly, I heard my first startup. The first startup I heard about was Dwala, because at the time I was living in Iowa. Ashton Kutcher invested in it. It was, the
Cool.
biggest thing to come out of from Iowa as a startup that I could remember. And it was like the coolest thing since sliced bread. And that was like the first, like, oh, startups, there's this whole world. And I was kind of like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, this is interesting, but like, I have my career path. And then I went off, chased, my wife, Christine, to Italy and got a master's degree, and then got reached out to on Twitter by this weird, like, guy who's like, hey, I have a company. I play for one of your, competitor teams. We should meet. We met, and I started working for him. And I was like, oh shit, I'm working for a true startup. And then I jumped to grow, and then I came through a program and, went through an accelerator. So I get it. We love the nonlinear career paths. And, you kind of made this point about thought you wanted to be a singer, and it didn't really work out because your success meant somebody else's failure, and you fell out of love. When you have something that you're so passionate about, you spent so many years of your life growing up to love and be and think that's what you want to do. What was that feeling like when you fell out of love with that? I mean, obviously that feeling of feeling out of love. I mean, how did you process that? You talked about like your ex-husband at the time, and the opportunity to kind of fall in startups, which was the healing process. But like, when you sat there and had to think about it, what was that processing like?
Yeah, it's a grieving process, honestly. Like, I remember growing up feeling like I was so lucky that because I knew what I wanted to do. I already had my path figured out. And then suddenly I was lost like everybody else. And there's a lot of feelings that go into that. There was a lot of shame. Like, my grandparents, really wanted to see me on Broadway, and they supported my music career, and they took me to piano lessons, and they paid for my voice lessons. And I felt like I was letting them down and disappointing them. Still, sometimes they're like, I don't know what you do. Why aren't you on Broadway?
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was sad. It's an opportunity then to reinvent yourself and to like rethink through your life and what you want. But it was hard, and feeling like I didn't have direction or path, or like I wasn't good enough. Like what if I never amounted to anything or had an impact on the world? So there was a lot of like hard feelings in that process of rediscovery to like what I would actually want to do.
Yeah. I think it's kind of important because as teens and 20-somethings, we're taught you go to school for something, you pick a career, you get a degree, and then you go work in it, and it's like you feel stuck, but you don't have to be fucking stuck.
No.
It's okay if you fall out of love with something, right? It is going to be a grieving process, as Frances just said, but for those listening, as you think about your career, it doesn't have to be what you expected it. It can be so much more, something so different. And I was just thinking about this because you grew up with your grandparents in Buffalo or in New York City, or
no, I was in Long Island.
Long Island.
But yeah, I grew up with my grandparents because like my mom had a baby at 18, and so I was with my grandparents and my mom till I was about 7.
Okay. Well, I couldn't remember because I think it's Daniel that lives family up in Buffalo.
He's in Buffalo. Okay. Yeah.
So I know it was 182 or Buffalo, 182 or Long Island.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that Frances and I actually found that we had a lot more in common than we ever thought. In fact, that Frances originally family in Missouri as well.
Yeah, I have family in Missouri.
So Frances and I share kind of a Missouri connection. And when you hear her story and you hear about this passion and this growth, and her grandparents taking her to lessons, and this kind of pain and almost disappointment for everybody else but yourself. Right. And you kind of start thinking about that. And a lot of us feel that way, that we stick to paths because we think it's what people want us to do, not what we want to do. So getting back to your story, right? You went through this startup boot camp thing, and you're like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How did you get into Startup Institute? Like, how did you work your way into that to like, this is I'm going to take this boot camp, low risk, high reward. I mean, I went and got a master's in Italy because it's an
That's cool.
Yeah, well, 1, it was cool. 2, it's like 1/8 the cost of getting it here. And 3, I got to go coach American football and live there. But again, lower risk, higher reward, right? Even if I didn't learn something, I was going to be living in a new country. I was going to learn so much, right? So I love like, hey, this low risk, high reward opportunity. I want to do this now. So tell me about that process. Like, I need to understand where this key turned for you that clicked into what will happen when we talk about NUMA.
Yeah, I wanted it so bad. I remember I applied and they wanted to schedule my interview, but I worked like a 14-hour day nannying because like I would take the train 2 hours into the city every day to nanny on the Upper West and 2 hours back to Long Island every night. And it was a long day. And so like I was so happy when they had answered my application and they were willing to do like a very late, like 8 p.m. interview with me. And I like ran home, I put on a blazer for my interview. I went through 2 rounds. I got accepted. It was like one of the happiest days of my life. I was so excited. And I started this program, and I met so many people because it basically, the idea, like very similar to an accelerator, is that people that are teaching you in the curriculum, people that actually operate using those skills every day. So like I did the marketing track. I actually don't like marketing. I'm a salesperson, but I didn't know that then. You're learning from people, like the person that taught me how to do Google Analytics worked on the internal Google Analytics for Google. So like they're an expert in that skill set. So at the same time that you're learning skills, you're also building network and building connections. And that was the most important part about it. And learning how to leverage your network and make asks and go on coffee meetings so that you can find opportunities. I took 2 unpaid internships during that period of time as well, so where I could start to actually build out and practice my skills. They put us also in partner project groups and partnered us with other startups across skill sets because they had a development track, design, marketing, and sales. And we all collaborated together to make an impact on an actual business. And I just loved how creative it could be and collaborative. And it reminded me of the reasons I fell in love with music in the first place, even though it wasn't music. And so I graduated. It was 8 weeks long. I walked away with a ton of friends, many of which are still like my best friends and core people today, that are still my network and are still supporting. And I then started the job hunt, and it was brutal. I had probably about 100 first round interviews. Like I got still so many no's along the way, until I got my first job at Sitter City. So Sitter City had been, actually when I was nannying, babysitting, I got all my jobs off of their platform. And they wanted to start a new on-demand babysitting service. And it was sort of like the innovation inside of their startup. And so I opened up their New York office, later launched their service in also Boston and DC. And it was a really great experience. I loved being able to work with the team and kind of get my hands dirty. And then I had the opportunity to join the team at Startup Institute. And that was like so amazing. That's actually where I met John Lynn, one of your other previous guests. He and I worked there together, but got to actually work with students and help other people change their lives and their career in the same way that I had the opportunity to do so.
I love that. And, it's interesting, right? Because we think about the job market today, and especially now, and as we're recording this in July, this will probably be out in August 2021. We're in one of the hottest job markets we've had in a long time. Post-pandemic, things are opening back up. The future of work has changed.
Yeah.
And all these opportunities, right? It's a candidate-driven market. You and I both work in this recruitment and mission space. We understand these things. But even back then, you go through all these jobs because you're reinventing yourself. What was it that kept you motivated to say, you know what? Because you could have easily fallen back and done something else that you knew how to do. I mean, in my life, I've done this twice. I went and chased something different, didn't like it, fell back into recruitment because I knew I could do well at it and make money. And it ended up getting me fired because that's not what I was passionate about. So how did you stay driven to finding the right opportunity, to following your entrepreneurial heart into working in the startup space?
Oh, probably not wanting to be a total complete failure and disappointment in life. Honestly, it's I don't know. I get like doggedly passionate about stuff. I mean, I was like that with music, and I remember when I lost music, I like really wanted something to sink in my teeth into. I found a lot of value and meaning in providing value, and having something meaningful to work towards, and to always have goalposts. I like to have something that I'm working towards and achieving. Otherwise, I feel like I'm dying. It's like a shark. Like if it doesn't keep swimming, it's dead. So I think that's kind of that. And like, I loved the space and I loved the community, and I loved like a lot of startups have really cool missions, and they're like, I want to curse, like they're fucking doing cool shit that are, and they're innovating in so many spaces. There's like music tech. There are people that are doing like amazing things within sustainability. They're going to change the world. There's like SpaceX that's trying to figure out how to get us to Mars when like the sun eats the Earth one day and we can't live on the Earth no more, or until we kill it first, which is probably what's going to happen. But you know, like, and I just like loved the space so much, and I just wanted to. I was determined to be a part of it.
Yeah. So, really interesting point here, because we talk about, you know, startups, and I think, you know, one of the things that I talk a lot about is how everyone has this view of startups, that they're all Uber or Airbnb, that they're a great idea, they share it with somebody, they get millions of dollars of funding, and they can go scale. And that's not how any of this fucking works, okay? And who better to talk about this? So, at Startup Institute, got to do that for a few years. You grew to the Associate Director of Missions. NUMA came calling, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little about, because I want to really get into like this entrepreneurship thing. So but to do that, I need to tell people, we need to get people to understand what NUMA is. So you got into NUMA, and it's really kind of cool because she kind of scaled really quickly at NUMA. So tell me a little bit, how did NUMA find you? How did you find NUMA?
Yeah.
And you had this quick transition. You were there for about 12 months to 18 months before you had the opportunity to step up and take over. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, that was obviously like a really cool, quick thing that just popped for you, which has led this last 2 years of what we're going to talk about with entrepreneurship and acceleration. So tell me your quick story here.
It was quick growth. It's funny because I always tell people that they should focus on their strengths instead of their weaknesses. Like, people always think that they should round out their weaknesses, but when you find something that you're good at and that you love and that pays you, you're going to like advance in it very fast. Like, even when I was at Startup Institute, like a lot of my the other students when I was a student were much younger. They were in their early 20s, and I was, you know, already in my mid to late 20s at that point. And I felt like I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be so much more behind all of these people in terms of my career path. And I wasn't, because I found the right fit for something that I was good at and I was passionate about, and that allowed me to position myself for opportunities to grow really rapidly. And so, like, I always tell people to choose opportunity over money at first and position yourself for growth. We
have not heard that quote, Bear Nation. Opportunity over money every day. I've been saying that for years, but I use that in almost every episode. So I have to give a little raise up for that.
I love it. Yeah. No, and like, so actually at the time I had 3 job offers. I got like, it was cool too, because I had gone from having to like struggle to get job opportunities to, because I built a network. And this is like also a really important tip, just like build relationships. Always be building network. Always, 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 because that's where opportunities come from, is from relationships. And so I no longer had to like apply cold to things. People were pinging me because they knew I was on the search. And so NUMA was opening up their New York office. And for me, it was a really exciting opportunity because it was to join, like, to get to build a program from scratch. Like, I had been working for Startup Institute, which was an existing program, already had network. I got to see how it operated. I got to be a part of that, work with the students, which were entrepreneurial. They weren't necessarily entrepreneurs. And the idea of being able to actually build a program from scratch and like figure out the value proposition and identify like the right business model in relation to it and build the network and community around it was so exciting. And I had 3 job offers, and I picked the one that had the lowest title and the lowest pay at the time. Like, I could have been making $40,000 more than what I started with at NUMA.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is where I get to grow. And I did, which was fortunate. And so within 6 months, I went from program manager to program director. We were a team of 3 originally. And then right before about 2 years, I took over as the CEO and managing director of the office when the previous one, who I love, Aviva, went back to France. So, and then I've gotten to run the activities and operations since then.
And so I want to back up here, because there's 3 big lessons that you shared all in that short string of the story that have been consistent, persistent messages of this podcast. 1, chase opportunity, not money. We talk about it all the time, right? Especially millennials and Gen Z. When we think about entrepreneurship, follow your heart, take the leap, take opportunity. One of the things that took me a long time to do that, to make that full jump. And it took me getting fired to be like, Rob, there's no other choice. Why are you hiding from it? And, I say this all the time, and John said this on an episode earlier, which we talk about you, is that lean into fear, because it's through fear that growth happens. And you coined to him early that have the hard conversations. It's in the hard conversations that learning really happens, right?
Yeah.
In leadership and especially in entrepreneurship. So that was the first one, opportunity, not money. Second one, and for those that are part of Bear Nation know this, I have a book coming out called The Social Soul, How to Master Your Personal Professional Brand with Intentionality and Authenticity. The key to that book and what that's all about is how you do and build intentionally authentic network. If you heard anything that she just said, always be building community, always building network. Let people know your fucking intentions, because when they know your intentions, things come back to you in tenfold. Going from grinding out hundreds of no's to 3 job offers at the same time because people are wanting to talk to you because they know your intention. They know your skill. You authentically and intentionally brought people into your community, into your network. That makes sense. So value-added networks is point 2. And a point that seems counterintuitive to all the self-help books. Focus on strengths, not your weaknesses. There's a time and a place to focus on weaknesses, right? We have to upskill and get better.
Yeah.
When we think about business and think about growth, where do we make the biggest impact, right? And how do we use that to grow and leverage? And then as you continue to grow, you work on your weaknesses, but you don't always have to, right? And one of the books that have changed my life as an entrepreneur is Who, Not How, right? By Dan Sullivan. The formula to achieve bigger goals through accelerating teamwork, right? And this is a perfect transition into acceleration here. But this is all about, you don't need to teach yourself how to do everything. Bring the people in that know how to do it better than you. The strength of a leader is your ability to bring talent around you and create something bigger. The sum total should be bigger than the pieces, right? It's a bigger calling, and you can't do that all yourself. That's not, you said, hey, you went to do marketing. You and I have talked. Marketing is not your strong suit.
No,
selling
it is not.
Selling is, training is, recruiting is, bringing talent in is.
Talent.
Right? And those are things that I think, so those are 3 big lessons that you shared in your story of NUMA. And these are lessons that entrepreneurs need to know. And so to kind of loop this back all together is we think of entrepreneurship as like this big shining moment, but it's not. And there's a million amazing companies that are going to innovate and change the world. They're never going to be unicorns. They may be multi-million-dollar companies.
Yep.
But guess what? That's awesome. Not everyone has to be a unicorn. Yes, that's what we strive to be, but impact, opportunity, creating something that helps others is so important. So I want to talk about acceleration, right? It's a word that we use a lot. And for those that haven't heard, go back and listen to John Lynn's episode. We talk about acceleration in that episode too. But talk to me about, what do you do to accelerate startups? So NUMA is an accelerator. NUMA brings in companies from all around the world to help accelerate growth in the U.S. market. How? What does that mean? What does it mean to accelerate growth?
Yeah, so this is actually a thing John Lynn talks a lot about as well. And I don't know if he mentioned this on his talk, but like there's a combination, like accelerators have a start and end date, typically. They should be cohort based, so you should have other members and peers that are going through the same experience at the same time, because that breeds collaboration. It breeds finding other opportunities. It's another connecting point. Like, you are going through this period of time in this journey with others that are in the same position as you. There are aspects of curriculum. So there's educational components of things that you need to know or might not know about the business. And they're usually taught in an accelerator by people that are actual experts. So like Rob, for a long time, you're one of our best sales experts. Like, you've also done stuff on recruitment and go-to-market strategy with our teams. And like, it's people that actually have this experience and knowledge that you might not have. And then the biggest and most important aspect of accelerators is the network and the community and the connections, because that, as we mentioned before, like whether you're looking for a career or whether it's your business or whatever it is that you're trying to do, your network is one of your most important assets. And so giving them a network in the US to drive business opportunities forward and knowledge is so, so critical. And so those are like the key components of how accelerators work and how our model works as well for our entrepreneurs. I
love this thing about network so much. And one of the things that I found super fulfilling about the NUMA community, in fact, pat myself on the back. Those that are listening, you can't see it, but in the latest cohort that recently happened, I actually didn't do a single session. And what's cool is that 3 people I introduced to NUMA did those sessions. And what I love about that is that I am an expert at certain things and I'm always upskilling, but there's also so many amazing people out there that startups, these accelerators need to hear from different perspectives and different places and different people doing at different things because they're different stages, right? When you think of startups, we're looking 0 to $500,000, right? 0 to $1 million. Maybe some of the companies you had, maybe 2 to 10. We've had a few of those.
Yeah, we have some big ones. Yeah,
but majority of them are in that like $500,000 to I'd say $2 million, where a lot of those companies come in and they're different segments, different sectors, different parts. And the cool thing about accelerators through the curriculum and through the network is that they have a chance to talk to a guy like Rob, who has scaled a business from 0 to 1, or maybe go talk to a guy like David Weiss, who brings in a very structured approach with the MetaPEC to really help technical founders who need to do sales and really put process together. And that's what I love about this accelerator community, and so many people don't understand, is that they think, I'm going to go through this accelerator 3 months and go make $1 million in business because it's the U.S. market.
It doesn't work that way.
So it doesn't. So what do entrepreneurs who are looking to grow and scale in the U.S. market, right? Whether they're from abroad, from the U.S., you're thinking about accelerating and you're thinking about growing your business, what are some of the bare necessities that a company needs to think about before they can really look at this accelerator model to hit that because accelerators can help a company do in 3 months what might take them on their own 9 months to 18 months to learn, right?
Yeah.
So what are the bare necessities to know if you're ready for this acceleration space?
Yeah. It's also different by accelerator, right? Because there are early stage accelerators, there's early stage incubators that are ready for you to take you from, idea stage into your MVP. And so I think, do your research as an entrepreneur as well in terms of what stage you're at. So it's also self-awareness of where you are at, so that okay, what is actually going to be the right fit for me? What are actually my challenges right now? The entrepreneurs that I love working with the most, especially even in the interview processes, are the ones that even in the interview process, they're not trying to pitch their company and what's great about them. They're coming to me being like, we know that we do these things well. We know that we suck at marketing, or we know that we need help with the go-to-market, or I don't know everything. We have a company with us right now in our current program, very successful, multi-time female founder. She's exited other companies before, and she's going through our program because they're on a rocket ship. And she's like, and we need help figuring out how to structure out our team and our processes and all of that. And so they're really aware of where they need the support. So then you can tailor that and match that to the right accelerator program, looking at what is their network, based off of my needs and challenges. Can this specific program help me answer these specific goals that I have? And it's probably not going to be I'm going to raise $10 million in 10 weeks. That's not realistic. But by the end of the program, it can be realistic to have your assets ready, to have some introductory conversations already with some investors that could be in your right target, for you to understand how to prospect for the right investors, how to approach them and have the right strategy to change the power dynamic. So those are the types of things that you will walk away with. And I think having realistic expectations and also an awareness and doing good research on what accelerators are the right fit for you is the most important thing. Because we do U.S. market entry for companies that are, around Series A, sometimes pre-Series B. And so we work with specific niches that, you might not be a fit for, but you might be a fit for another program.
Yep. I love that. And that's the thing, is there's a lot of programs out there, and they're not a one size fits all. They're a pretty tailored approach. I love this self-awareness, right? Most entrepreneurs we talked a little bit earlier about ego. Yeah. Entrepreneurs need to remove the ego out the door. Look in the mirror, right? And the second piece that she said, they're not trying to pitch us and what they're good at. They know what they're good at. They need support. Because guess what? We all fucking know the U.S. market's huge, and your market, total addressable market's fucking 2 billion or 4 billion or whatever. We know that. We know the market. Investors know the market.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it there in 2 years to get 2%. They don't want to see that. Oh, we're going to be there in 4 years. No. How?
Yeah.
How are you going to go get 1% over the next 2 years? Because 1% is still a multi-million-dollar business.
Yep.
Tell me how the fuck you're going to get to 1% in the next 4 years. Right? And that's one of the things that I love about the companies that come through NUMA is they understand that and they work towards that. And there's been a lot of successes out of NUMA. I want to change gears a little bit on you here. The CEO and managing director of NUMA. And I've had the pleasure of watching you speak on different stages. I've seen the different panels and things that you get into. What's it like being a female managing director and CEO in the startup space that is very male dominated? And how have you felt about the education piece? Because it's something that I know you talk about and you look at when you're bringing in companies through NUMA. So tell me a little about your experience in this space and maybe some things that you think are going to really be changing as we look at 2021 and 2022 with entrepreneurship. Because there's organizations out there. There's a stat that Alex Badorf, I don't know if you know her from Get Shit Done.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I think John introduced me to her, and of course you know her. We talk about 50% of entrepreneurs are women. 96% of investment goes to male entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. I mean, you're in this space all the time, much more in it than I am. And you see this and you're speaking on things like this and you're in these conferences. So tell me a little bit what it's like being your journey. And then what do you see are some things that are really changing in the space for the better?
Yeah, I think so as a female entrepreneur, it is definitely different. I don't think that there's a lot of managing directors for accelerators are male. That is a fact. Like it's more of a rarity to have females in leadership positions, which gets me some really great token speaking opportunities sometimes. But it's also I get to be, and I have a strong philosophy of, and I try to also create this culture in my team of I really want everyone to be able to be their full selves. So I don't really feel like I need to change how I operate or what I do or what I'm great at just because I'm a female. I am really short and I have short blonde hair because the listeners can't see me. And I'm this little petite thing that wears dresses everywhere. And pre-pandemic, always 6-inch high heels. So I don't look like the person that should be in charge of the company. And I've even had times we had one of our events one time. It was one of our network kickoffs. And there was a guy from another accelerator program that was trying to compete with the type of work that we do. And they swarmed our event, which was very strange. And he was speaking to our, at the time, our EIR. And he was like, "Oh, are you going to be speaking later?" Assuming that he was the one running it. And he was like, "Oh, no, she is." And I was like, "Hi, I'm the managing director. Nice to meet you." So I always it's fun when people, it's unassuming, I'm unassuming. But I hire a lot of females. And I tend to our entire team is female leadership. Julia and Shai, and I want to continue to promote and support. I don't only mean to hire females, but I think it's important to promote and support more female leadership. And as a female leader, recognize that talent and grow it. And in the future, as of now, we don't have an investment fund, so we don't directly invest in startups, but that is one of the goals of mine for the future is to raise a fund for the company so that we can invest in entrepreneurs as well. And I think that that's honestly one of the things that needs to change as well is there needs to be more females that are in venture capital and that are making in charge of those investment decisions because we'll have, same thing as I tend to hire a lot of female leadership on accident. I think that that will help break down some of those challenges in the space if we have more females in VC.
I love that. And appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that because that is something that, you get to be in those conversations and you see this. And I know that's a big conversation in the space right now as we look at how do we help drive talent and entrepreneurship across the board and how do we help drive, I think one of the key things that I always talk about when it comes to investment in entrepreneurship, right? And entrepreneurs and my opinion is don't take investment unless you need it. Right. Yeah. And, I think there's a lot of companies that work hard just to get investment because I think that's going to help them scale faster than working towards traction.
Yep.
When there's a lot of value in if you can get the traction to get to a certain point, get a small investment, get more traction, then you can go for a big raise later, or you don't need it because, when you get investment, you give up part of your company. You no longer own full ownership of the company. So you start reporting to others. And so I think it's really important too to helping companies understand what traction means and what are goals for a startup, right? And startups throw these goals. Like you talked earlier, you're somebody that always needs a goalpost, right? Something to work towards.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see this all the time with these startups. Is like I said, we want to do $5 million in the next 5 years. And you look at their business plan, like, wait a second, that's unreasonable. You might get to $1 million in 4 years, which is a good chunk, or maybe even 3 million in 2 years. But how? Right? Yeah. I think so many entrepreneurs out there, and for those listening, when you think about acceleration, you think about growing your business, you think about what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? How are you going to do it? What is your plan? Because you need to have one. Not just, I'm going to go get investment. I have a great idea. I'm going to get investment and it's going to work itself out. How are you going to scale? Who do you have? And it comes back to one of these key lessons that Frances talked about. Always be building network. You're building a networking community. You just provide yourself more access to resources, people, opportunity, conversations to find your how. So as NUMA continues to grow and we look at 2021, the second half, and into 2022, you mentioned one of the things you want to do is an investment fund. What can we expect from NUMA moving forward, NUMA New York? What are some of the things on the horizon that you have cooking up as you continue to build and scale NUMA New York?
Yeah, so this is airing in August, right?
Yeah, August.
Well, okay. So then the papers will be signed by then. So I will share. We're actually going to be going through a rebrand. I, myself, and who is now our program director, who just got promoted to COO, Julia, are actually purchasing and acquiring the subsidiary NUMA New York from NUMA Paris. So at this point, probably when you're airing, this will have already been done. And going to be able to continue to grow the business in the direction, be able to continue to work with the international entrepreneurs from around the world, do more partnerships with governments, and ideally raise a fund to be able to invest in these entrepreneurs that are ready to scale into the US, that need that extra capital either for, bridge round or for their next, Series A or Series B. So very excited for the future, because now not only was I the CEO, but now I'm taking it to like the next level. I thought I hit the ceiling, but now I get to continue to grow and build what I love.
That's so exciting. And, I already got little, goosebumps. I've luckily known a little bit about this ahead of time, which is why we're teasing it, and lucky enough to be probably one of the first people and one of the first audiences to hear it on a larger scale that this will all have been set in stone and released as this comes out late. This episode will be out late August. We're shooting now in, early July. But it's so awesome to look forward to and think about what this opportunity provides. So we've been tracking Frances's journey. Entrepreneurship was never what she thought. And in fact, she has a vivid memory in fourth grade of being afraid of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Wanted to be on Broadway singer. Fell out of love with music. Fell in love with the startup scene. Worked her ass off to go be a part of a startup institute. Got her first job launching a new office and then launching 3 different offices. So entrepreneurial minded for another startup. So taking that on. 3 job offers. Took the lowest pay, lowest title for the biggest opportunity. And within 2 years, CEO and managing director, and basically took something that was brand new and helping grow and scale it, and now has the opportunity to buy it out, own it all herself, full on entrepreneurship minded to a T, taking full control, live or die by this, because the opportunity to grow it and the things that NUMA will be able to do is amazing. And if that's not like just a fucking cool entrepreneurship story, because the entrepreneurial journey is ever changing. It's as much of a mindset as it is a career.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship is impact. And I truly believe that. I mean, that's something that I believe. It's why the bare necessities of entrepreneurship. So thinking about the bare necessities, we talked about from other entrepreneurs looking at acceleration. What are some of the bare necessities that you're excited about, that you're preparing yourself for the next stage of the rebrand and taking on this business? What are some of those things that that are going to be challenges that you're preparing for today?
Yeah. So many. So there's, one of the things that is really important to me is the team and continuing to build up the team. We're actually hiring right now for a program manager. That's one of the things I think that's most important is identifying really great talent to be always building with, and to be working with the right people. As you mentioned before, you need to always have people that round out your skill sets. Like I know what I'm really good at, and I know what's the tallest tower I'm going to continue to build on top of. But then having the other people on my team that round out that are passionate, that are awesome. So that's super important in the coming months. The actual transition of the company and figuring out what is our new path forward, the direction, how we're managing everything. We get to do the fun stuff like new website, new logo, new name that we'll announce at some point, probably in September. And so building towards all of that. We're also right now in a ton of programs. We're running 4 programs right now simultaneously. And so also right now getting through that period of intense execution so that we can be in build mode again. So it's always figuring out how to refocus, how to continue to move forward. Many challenges.
I love it. Well, it looks like there's going to be a new tattoo in the near future for that left arm for a new brand, for a new company. So we can all expect to see that in the coming
our designer, I told him, I was like, this logo is going on my body, so it better be good.
I feel you. When I built the Rise Up brand logo, Frances and I were talking about this not too long ago. We had a chance to sit down, and I never thought the bear logo was the logo that I was going to go with. I wanted black and yellow and a lion, and I ended up going with the bear and the light blue and the white, and there's the whole story behind my nickname of the grizzly bear. My twin brother got internet famous as the bearded bear, being on the sidelines at North Dakota State. My grandfather was nicknamed Big Bear as a coach. And, when you build that brand, that logo, and that all that, my biggest thing is put you in it. Like this is you. This is the next stage, and this is an all-in moment. So be all in, put all in into what that looks like and what that is, and make it connect with you, because it's going to make everyone connect with it. And I think there's so many people out there that are going to be excited to support this venture. And I love the idea of all the new things that NUMA will get to do. NUMA New York will get to do moving forward. But there's a lot of challenges. What scares you the most about this next step? What is the fear that you're leaning into making this leap?
Yeah, it's, I always knew, like, as I've gone on this journey that I was going to eventually graduate into full entrepreneurship. And I had always figured that, like, NUMA was going to be my training wheels, because I had a lot of accountability and responsibility. I managed the bank account, I managed the P&L, I'm in charge of hiring. Like, I had a lot of the responsibility already. And so now it almost feels like the training wheels are coming off, because at the end of the day, I could have still, like, put in 2 weeks notice and like left if I really wanted to, where that's no longer an option. And so I think now that I don't have that safety net, there is a thing in the back of your brain that's like, I could totally fail and end up on the street in a box. Like I could totally like fuck this up. So there's, a new level of responsibility, and entrepreneurship is a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of like at night worrying about my team and their stress load, and like a little like spiky ball in the middle of my stomach, being afraid about like, why hasn't this client paid yet? And like, what happens if, this project falls through, or all of the things. So there's, it's not easy. And I think 4th grade me knew that. Like, she'd be falling off her chair right now if she knew what I was doing. But it's scary, and you have to do it though. You have to lean into it. And like every day, you're doing things that scare you, that make you uncomfortable, having hard conversations with team or with investors or with people, like it's, or with clients, like it's every day there's something scary that I'm doing. Yeah.
But, as we said earlier, it's leaning into that fear. That's where the growth happens. And, one of the things I've noticed since I started my entrepreneurial journey with Half Day Group and Rise Up and launching both the businesses is, as scary as it is, and as nights that I haven't been able to sleep, or nights that I just have anxiety, each day you get to make the impact that you want. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship. When you build the business, and to all those entrepreneurs out there, you've heard my story multiple times about waiting. Frances just talked about her journey to this, and that 4th grade her would be falling off her chair, but it took from 4th grade her to today to get to where she is, to be able to say, you know what, training wheels are coming off. We're jumping off this ledge, and we're going all fucking in. Because if not now, then when, right? Like opportunities, chase opportunity, not money. Opportunities like this don't happen when you have a chance to buy out and own something and take this on so that you can grow it. It's not something you put time and energy and effort to take this to the next level. And I think that's, such a key, amazing lesson that everyone can hear, can take away. And also coming back to another key lesson that she shared, none of this is possible. All these steps in her journey has not been possible without every step along the way building a network and community. And one of the things I can tell you that Frances has done well, and from the moment I've met her, and I'm feeding into this community and network to do things, to take over things that I used to do because it benefits everybody involved. And Frances is one of the few people that I know that makes a huge effort to always reach out to that network and just ask, hey, how you doing? Hey, we're doing a wine o'clock. Hey, we're doing a virtual event. And it's not just a few people, it's to the whole network. And, that seems overwhelming. That can seem expensive, et cetera. But the community is so engaged. And I know I'm not the only one, right? I'm bringing people out. I see this all the time. And as an entrepreneur, we haven't nailed this down even harder. Don't stop being an authentically just fucking awesome human. Build community and network, because that takes you places. Like, if you haven't learned anything from Frances, go back and listen to the story again. It's all about relationships. It's all about building network, building community, building opportunity, chasing opportunity. And that's, for so many young entrepreneurs out there, don't let that fall by. Don't do something because you think you have to, or you're going to disappoint somebody else. Do what you want. Follow that passion. And it may come from a place of grief, of falling out of love with something and not knowing what the fuck is next. And then finding that passion. And that's, Frances shared that. It's a deep pain that, you don't always say that out loud. And then when you think about it, it's kind of like, damn, yeah. So I think, I'm going to stop there because I think I'll go down a tangent of emotion and deepness. But those are things that I took away from this episode. And I hope all those out there, Frances is one of the few people like myself who've worked with hundreds, and I mean hundreds of entrepreneurs. Frances and I have seen businesses that have scaled. We've seen businesses that we thought would fail that thrived. We've seen business that we thought had it all and didn't. We've been there in the trenches next to them. We've helped them. We've seen them. We've accelerated them. We've scaled them. We've coached them. And so there's no one better to connect with and listen to about entrepreneurship. And someone to pay attention to is not only is she going through this journey herself, but she's still taking on this mission to help hundreds more entrepreneurs through partnerships, not only through Accelerator, but through government projects, through different things. What I love about being a part of NUMA is I get to be asked to be a lot of panels, and people that know me know I fucking love to talk. Love to talk entrepreneurship, love to talk go-to-market, love to talk sales. And NUMA gives me a great place to do that. And so if you're interested about being a part of the community, reach out to Frances, reach out to me, help you get into the NUMA family. It's a great family and community to be a part of. So as we close this out, I always like to ask a few key questions to everybody, right? Because it's all about giving back and what should those that are entrepreneurial minded be thinking about? So I'm going to ask this in a little bit different order than I normally do. Then I gave it back to you because why not? It's Friday. Great. I'm feeling it. I love this. What is one book, resource, or piece of content that you would recommend entrepreneurial-minded folks out there to be reading, consuming, or listening to?
So my favorite book on management and leadership is Radical Candor. They talk a lot about feedback culture, motivating your team. And that's it's how I operate. And so I also have all of my team typically read that book as well, because it's like my philosophy on management. And I think it's not surprising. I think relationships and people are the most important, and my closest relationships are with my team. So those are the most important for me to cultivate.
I absolutely love that. And it's a great book. I recently, I've learned about Radical Candor, but I never read it in totality until recently, partly because I'm doing work for NUMA Paris, and that's a big piece of one of the training programs that I led. So after reading that, it was amazing. And now I get a lot about you. What advice would you give Gen Z or millennial entrepreneurs right now?
I would say to really, going back to some of the lessons that I guess I've shared anecdotally through my story, like, be uncomfortable, take the leap. Don't be like, do the things that make you afraid. Like, you're always going to be scared. Like, it's going to always be scary. Like, there's never moments where I'm not scared taking the next step. I'm scared every fucking time. But you just have to do it anyway. You have to move through the fear, just like take action. Build self-awareness, be aware of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and try to build on those strengths, because there are things that you're going to be really great at. And if you build on the tallest tower, you're only going to reach higher heights. Mm-hmm. And then build relationships. Like, you really surround yourself with supporters, with network. Always be networking. Relationships are the most important asset that you have in terms of finding future opportunities and collaborators. Everyone's a potential collaborator.
I love that. I mean, speak and not only build an amazing intentional community, speak your intentions. Let people know what you're doing. I mean, when those out there know, I run two businesses, Happy Day Group, Rise Up. Happy Day Group, we brought on an organization out of Mexico to help support a lot of it, which means I had more free time. And I was thinking what I want to do more with the Rise Up brand and some of the stuff. And one of the first people I called was Frances and said, hey, working on some things. I spoke into attention. 2 weeks later, Frances emails me, hey, Rob, I'm making 2 intros. I think there's some opportunity here, which led to 2 opportunities that I never thought possible, but I knew that there were things I loved. Timing is everything, right? And it just so happens that, one of the things I did is just, hey, Frances, some of the things I want to be doing, things I'm working on, if you hear anything, let me know. Spoke it into attention. And it wasn't even like 2 weeks. And it was kind of funny because she was going on vacation and she's like, yeah, I'll let you know. 2 weeks later, hey, Rob, totally random, but boom, boom, boom. Right? But that's the power of network. Power of network. So I love that.
Have asks. Like, you have to have asks. Don't be 100%. Afraid to ask for what you want. Like, and that's something I teach my entrepreneurs when they're pitching. You have to have an ask. You have to tell people how to help you.
No one knows what you need unless you ask for it. Why? And, there's this fear of asking for something. Oh, maybe it looks too big. Who the fuck cares? Have your ask. Who can help me do this? Because guess what? That network will rally. The right people will rally and help. So I love that. There's a great lesson from an earlier episode with Rufus, who was the CEO of StyleMe. Rufus used to work in blue chip companies and Moet Hennessy, all these things. And he had an opportunity at a serial entrepreneur called him like, hey, I need somebody to run this company. And one of his mentors told him, if you're comfortable in your life, sitting on your couch, having your vacations, you're in the wrong place. And he didn't get into entrepreneurship until way later. And he was like, I had that moment. I was comfortable with my life and I was missing something. And I jumped into it. So I love that lesson. Lean into discomfort. We have some really awesome common themes of entrepreneurship showing up here in the Bare Necessities. I think I already know the answer to this. What is your superpower, Frances?
Yeah, I would say probably relationship building and identifying really great talent. To do the things I'm terrible at. I'm terrible at a lot, Rob.
I love that. I mean, I can't, snap that up, raise that up more than enough, because it's something I live by too, right? Building great communities, building value-added networks, and we talk about that a lot. So when we think about, I shared a lot of these, anecdotal key lessons here, and there's a lot. What is your lasting message that you want to kind of leave our listeners with as we step out of this episode together?
Yeah, I'd say having fear, as I mentioned before, is a part of the process. Like, as you were mentioning, like, sitting on your couch being comfortable, that's when people are typically the most unhappy, is if you're sitting in a place that's super comfortable. Like, challenge yourself. Entrepreneurship is super hard. It's not always easy. It's sometimes scary. It's not always glamorous. But like, it can be incredibly rewarding. Like, you get to build stuff that you want to build. You get to find meaning. You get to find opportunities to create value for people, to potentially have the opportunity to change the world. Mm-hmm. And so if you focus on the relationships, the why of what you're building, you're mm-hmm. going to find those opportunities and put yourself in those opportunities to be successful.
Mm-hmm. I can't say it better myself. I mean, poofda, like hitting all the feels, you know, this is the whole journey behind this podcast. Like, you just hit on it. Entrepreneurship is hard. It's not glamorous. It's a combination of a lot of things. And that, to me, is why I wanted to have these deep conversations and share these lessons and messages with people, not so that you can hear how to be successful. Yeah. You'll learn how to be successful listening to the bare necessities, because you're going to learn about what does it mean? What are your bare necessities? Self-awareness, relationships, leaning into fear. Those things are what carry an entrepreneur through the hard and the good. Because when things are going good,
entrepreneurship is a mindset.
It is. Because when everything's going good, everybody wants some. They're trying to figure out how to eat off you. When it's just going bad, no one wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be a part of a sinking ship. Or so they think. But when you have those bare necessities, you have those mindset, you know what you're trying to do, you lean into fear and you make every day count with impact. That's where entrepreneurship happens. That's where impact happens. That's where winning happens. And winning isn't always being a unicorn. Winning is, what did you learn? How did you grow? What can you take moving forward? And that's what I find so important, and really take away a lot from the conversation we had today, because if you hadn't gone through that own grief and through your own formulations of winning and finding something new, you would never be at the point to be taking over your own business and scaling it to the moon and on a rocket ship. So I love that. So what is your ask for my listeners, right? You said I always have an ask. You put that out. So what is your ask?
Always have an ask. Well, I mean, obviously, we work with a lot of different entrepreneurs from around the world. And so, you know, if there are entrepreneurs that are looking to expand into the US that you know of, or if you work for a company that does, that's great. If you want to mentor, there's always so many ways to get involved with an accelerator. So like, if you want to get involved with other entrepreneurs, like we have associateships that, you know, you work with our startups for one program. We're hiring if you know someone that is excited to work at an accelerator, and you know someone that would like love to dive into this, or maybe you. There's always ways to engage with us. So please reach out, figure out ways to get involved. Like we have an amazing community of people, of supporters, of mentors, and just even being involved with accelerators as a mentor is also another great way to grow your network. So connect with me is my ask.
Love it. Love it. So I will make sure. And how do they connect with you? Where should they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can send me an email. I'm at Frances, FRANCES.S @NUMA, NUMA.co.
Awesome. So I will link your LinkedIn. I will also drop the email right into the show notes. They can easily click and make that happen. Again, the ask. If you want to be a mentor, get involved in the Accelerator community, reach out. If you're an entrepreneur or a company that wants to scale into the US market and go through an Accelerator program, reach out. If you're looking to get involved in, want to be an associate or a program manager in Accelerator community, NUMA's hiring. Or if you just want to be a part of a great community of entrepreneurship, connect with Frances, right? Those are the 4 ways. Those are the 4 asks. Frances, thank you so much for being a part of the Bare Necessities podcast, and part of Bare Nation. I enjoyed our conversation, and I cannot wait to see the continued growth and success. And we're going to have to get, for our listening audience, the video will be on YouTube. And what we'll do is once Frances gets the logo and gets the tattoo, I will make sure to share the new ink to Bare Nation. So Frances, once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining Bare Nation. All right. Until next time, until next week, when I share another awesome episode with another great entrepreneur, stay well, Bare Nation. Also, is Daniel back there? I know Daniel, the listeners can't hear, but Daniel is an amazing dude, Frances's boyfriend. I know he's got his headphones in for those that are watching the show, those that are listening. The dude's a beast. I love him. He's so much fun. Frances and Daniel are fun. They're a riot to hang out with. So if you ever get a part of the NUMA family and you're in New York, you'll know what I mean. You'll get to party with us sometime at a NUMA event. So thank you all. We'll talk to you soon. Bear Nation, once again, thank you for listening to the Bare Necessities of Entrepreneurship. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, take care.